I knew. I just.
Dad was probably with you. He's in the back sweating.
You guys were back there? Yeah. You take a shower since then? Because you had to be sweating back there. I bet, because it was miserable. So, good afternoon. My day began with visit with our head football coaches and athletics directors. We talked about the college football playoff. We talked about transfer portal. We talked about the SEC football schedule. We usually have that at the end of their meeting. They come in and share information with the athletics directors, just based on my schedule with our presidents. We did that early. I then spent the rest of my day with our presidents and chancellors, robust agenda talking about settlement, which, obviously we're waiting to see what that decision will be and when it will be issued. But to the extent we can talk about how terms of the settlement will be implemented, we spent a great deal of time, in fact, the bulk of our day on that, and as a group focused on making settlement work. I think an incredibly healthy conversation today. We finished talking about the NCAA decision-making working group. We identified back in December the need for consideration of a kind of an autonomy division within the NCAA structure. So if you go back in history, the autonomy allocation of certain bylaws, just taking that further, still playing within Division I, playing in March Madness. But just as things change, we have different responsibilities now for settlement implementation. Think that there's an appropriate governance change that we can consider. We also looked at what has come as a majority output from that working group, and I think probably some of you have seen on percentage weighted voting allocations on certain areas and reducing and streamlining committees, and we'll continue that conversation tomorrow. So that's enough of me talking about what I can remember from the day. We were reminded, so we did have a conversation with ESPN with our presidents. So I'll just remind everyone the live sports Emmy category, which was described as the best picture Oscar by our ESPN friends, was won by the SEC on ABC. So pretty cool, our first year with that ABC relationship to win that. And as I understand, the competing entries were all different NFL submissions from the networks that are the NFL and the entities that are the NFL. So it was the first time in over 40 years that a college entity had won that live sports category. So enormously proud of what we've done in the first year of that relationship and look forward to the future. So now I'm done.
Can you talk about, I guess Deloitte gave some briefing today. Can you talk about what they shared, how these guardrails?
Nope. No. There'll be a time for more communication, and we'll wait and see what happens with settlement. I like you though, but it's the bird song. It's a bird song, or Ecclesiastes 3. There's a time for everything, and it's just not the time for that right now.
Just based on what you heard, do you have confidence that this?
Yes. Yeah.
This enforcement?
Yeah. People are going to have opinions. Nothing ever worked when people sat around and said, well, this won't work. And we're adults, we're leaders, and I think I communicated this yesterday. We have a responsibility to make this work. Our presidents and chancellors began their day accepting their responsibility for making what's next work. So do I think there are going to be bumps in the road? Yeah, but illustrate change for me that doesn't have bumps in the road. Hired a really good organization. We also heard from LBI on another piece of management. They've got great experience with professional league information management. So I think we have done a really good job at identifying vendors is probably the right term, but entities that can help us support settlement terms and implementation.
Greg, sorry.
Heather was right behind you, but you can go first. I'll work back. I started in the first row, go second row.
What will you take from here to the next conversations that you have with the other commissioners about the college football playoff? Take a position that the SEC has taken, ideas, models into the next conversation that could move the CFP conversation forward.
I think I've said in response to a question and information like that I respect my colleagues enough that I owe that to them first. And I said that a couple of times last year. And I think, Ralph, we have meetings tomorrow where that topic's another part of the conversation. But regardless of the outcome, I think I owe it to my colleagues to tell them the outcome of these meetings. I have said before, we do have a twist of timing. So part of my frustration I've expressed with some of the delays over time is we have a scheduling decision to make for 26. I'm not sure that much would have changed had something, some theoretical decision been made before. But the pressure point for us is we're going to have to make a decision about our 26 schedule in a time frame that is shorter than what would be the very specific deadline for making CFP decisions. I'd like to see CFP decisions made in a time-efficient manner. Not a great history of that, by the way. But I'm not sure that we can work through our obligations in as time efficient as I'd like. So I'm going to share perspectives as an outcome from this meeting with my colleagues. Plenty of opinions, I think, communicated today, as I've been advised, and then we can follow up with whatever leaks. Heather?
When you talked yesterday about the coaches in the room being arrested in the Fox 11, they echoed that in interviews with a lot of us. But the athletic directors, a lot of them we talked to were on a different page and still really wanting to see the automatic qualifier. So my question is, how difficult do you think it will be to get both of those groups on the same page in terms of an agreement? And would you like the athletic directors to reconsider this 5+11?
I think the opportunities there. I'm not going to start jumping around more on models between the two. So I don't view it how difficult. I think there's an opportunity to consider some different models. What I've said repeatedly is we're interested from the athletics directors and what you heard that 4-team allocation is of interest. We haven't committed. Others have opinions. At some point, we'll make a decision. And I'll share some more information when I visit with my colleagues. I think it's an opportunity. So let's just go right down the line there, Pete.
A basketball question for you.
We were really good last year, historically good. Nobody's asked me that.
I believe you.
I think everyone's living in denial how good we were.
So, obviously,
I was a sophomore. No, I was a sophomore in college at the time. I was at Cuga Community College when we finished that season.
obviously replicating 14.
The last time some conference was that good, by the way. I didn't finish the thought. I was trying to provide my usual entertainment.
Replicating 14 teams in the tournament would be very difficult. But I'm just wondering.
It's an opportunity, man. That's the theme.
If you look at the recent few years and where the sport has gone and where your league and other top leagues have gone financially, what's a realistic course you can chart from here as you try to uphold that?
16. I said yesterday, I guess I did talk about, someplace I talked about. Yesterday, Rick Barnes at the end said, did you think 10 years ago when we asked you what you expected of us, and you said to us, we want you to be like softball. That's our expectation. And the story was we're in a coaches meeting and we were talking about, we'd only had 3, so we're now into 16, 17. And I'm asked, what do you expect out of men's basketball? And I said I expected to be like softball because we had just had all 13 of our teams, Vanderbilt doesn't play softball, selected in the NCAA tournament for the first time. And they all laughed. And I said, you know what, you should laugh. And 10 years ago, had I made that statement to the softball coaches, they would have laughed because you shouldn't get everybody in. So that's what I expect. Now, is it a failure that we only had 14? I thought it was pretty cool. Can we do that again? You walk in the room of coaches. We've had 2 coaching transitions, but man, we got a heck of a roster of men's basketball coaches, and I could say that about a lot of sports. And when you look back 10 years, very different dynamic as far as that roster of coaches. So I think there's a chance to compete at a high level. I was asked which I know is going to be asked on the floor as the nets are being cut down. If Florida, in that case, hadn't won the national championship, would the season have been a disappointment given all you achieved? And so I don't just boil it down to the number. I hope we perform well. I would expect that. And, sometimes how the ball bounces, means 12, might mean 14 again. But we want to set our expectations high in the right sort of way.
Greg, when it comes to revenue sharing.
I was going right down the road, Jimmy. No, it's okay. You're quicker for a retired guy. Pat's next.
When it comes to revenue sharing, does the league want each school to have a uniform percentage allocated to the sports, or is that going to be up to the individual?
It's up to the institutions. We had that conversation, put it on hold. As we've gone through this implementation process, you can make decisions in a hurry that you then wish you hadn't made. And what I said, a couple things, Jimmy, to the extent it's helpful. If you say we're going to share X amount with whatever sport, all your competitor has to do is say we're going to share X plus, whatever it is, whether they share it or not. So don't put ourselves in that position as we're onboarding was one of my kind of top thoughts. We'll see if that changes. Pat.
Yeah. Brian Kelly said we want to play Big Ten teams. He said that the 80s know that, and you know that. Potentially regular season, or potentially a play-in cross-conference sort of setup. What do you think the likelihood of that could be, and have you had any communication with the Big Ten about potentially?
Not after Brian's comment. We remember we had a meeting in October, and we talked about scheduling opportunities. So there's 3 ways it can go. One is you just stay out of it, kind of like we do now. The second is you try to facilitate more. And the third is we agree both to a mandate to play. That third one's incredibly difficult. So I understand the position. That's a long row to hoe to get to the end of that particular row.
Did did you
You just went next.
did you call Danny White after he said what he did about collective bargaining? Do you have any opinion on what he said?
I did not call Danny after that comment. I called Danny on other things, and I've opined about bargaining. I think we have a reality in our states around bargaining in public entities, but I'm not going to jump into some kind of public disagreement. We talk about a lot of things.
When you mentioned the 26 scheduling model, is that assume 26, 27? Does it have to be a 2-year model of home and home, or could it just simply be a 26 model with
There's a range of possibility there. So you can write 26 through 36, 26 only, 26 to 29. That would be an awkward number. But, yeah, it's a range of possibility there.
What was the conversation today and maybe this week about the affiliation membership agreement? Can you give us an idea of insight in those conversations?
No. I will say that 16 universities are fully committed to making the settlement terms work. I think that addresses the question. But to walk through conversations, I think that's why we closed the doors to the room. Kirk.
So,
We're just like, this is the most orderly group, so you guys over here get ready.
Trying to mind their manners. Was there any kind of vote taken by football coaches this week?
Not while I was in the room.
Okay.
I was in the room for about an hour yesterday. Range of issues, scheduling, playoff, transfers. I think I shared yesterday, they were clear. There was not a vote about the AFCA model that was introduced after the Charlotte meeting with a January portal about 10 days. That needs to be the model that advances. If it doesn't, they're not interested in this April model that I'm not sure where it bubbled up from. They'd rather have status quo than some of the other alternatives. So there was no vote, but that was a clear message to me. And then this morning's 45-minute meeting, there's been a lot that happened, so I remember I can visually see myself in the room. And I think we talked about some of those similar issues, scheduling, CFP, transfers. No votes in that that meeting. So I don't know if they voted on something. That's not something that I'll know until some point tomorrow.
One thing, Chris, I've
Maybe
heard you say
Friday.
about transfer portals, that possibly there could be one window for football and a different window for basketball. Has that been discussed very extensively at all, or either?
What do you mean by, what do you
Well, like
mean
maybe
by what?
after the season, football in January, basketball in the spring? Just have two
Oh,
separate,
yeah, we have that now,
so,
right? So we have January, we have two portals in football, we have one in basketball. And that basketball has moved a little bit. So maybe I'm not
I
understanding.
just don't know if everything has to change for every sport, you know, can it be tweaked in any way?
I think the answer is it kind of has fallen by season,
Right.
right? So there's the fall sports portal, and there's two of those. The SEC does not have a spring portal for fall sports. Our interconference transfer policy governs right after the season end portal window, provides the opportunity. And then you have basketball that starts a little bit after selection date. It moved a little bit. So that moved independent of any other sport. And I don't think there's been a lot of movement in spring sports. I think I'm trying to answer while talking through that. I think sports can have different transfer portal windows, certainly. I think the length could probably be different, you know, just given dynamics around a sport and the timing of that sport. So I think I've confused myself, or maybe confused you,
I'm sure I did.
and somehow there's an answer in there, if you can tease it out. Mr. Shep.
Do you have schedules ready for football